This Saturday against UCLA, USC gets to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube or wherever you're going to download your podcast, it's free. I appreciate your support. Show your appreciation. If you're watching on YouTube, become a subscriber. It's quick, it's easy, it's free. Just click that red subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that bell notification so you don't miss one episode of Locked On USC. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. Chip Kelly is dead man walking. Regardless of what happens in the Crosstown Showdown this Saturday afternoon, it's being reported by multiple outlets that UCLA is not going to retain Chip Kelly after USC beats the Bruins. This was first reported by Tracy Pearson of 247 Sports. He said there's speculation that he could stick around up until the end of the season, but his tenure could be over as soon as they get defeated by USC and Caleb Williams this Saturday. Chip Kelly was even asked about this after practice on Tuesday, if he's worried about history kind of repeating itself. It was 6 years ago that UCLA fired Jim Mora after USC beat UCLA. And Coach Kelly said, no, not at all. My concern is playing USC, so that's all we focus on. We always talk about being the most prepared and the least distracted, end quote. Well, I don't think his team was really prepared last Saturday. 7 points against Arizona State. Yeah, that was at the Rose Bowl too, by the way. And another, by the way, after USC and UCLA play this weekend, UCLA has to play Cal 1 week later, while USC gets to enjoy its bye-week reward for making the conference championship game. Yeah, I'm kidding. Of course, they're not going to the conference championship game, although there's still a chance. The real question is, why is Cal always playing against a team whose coach, well, the opponent's coach isn't going to be the head coach the following year? Remember, in 2021, USC went up to Cal. That was that's when Dante Williams was the interim head coach at the time. Anyways, just random observation. My everyday viewers and listeners, you're going to remember I said on yesterday's episode of Locked On USC that one of my favorite Trojan wins in this rivalry is the 50-0 shutout from 2011. Yeah. Well, let me just kind of remind everybody. Rick Neuheisel, Skippy, he believed that the gap between USC and UCLA had closed prior to that game. And then Matt Barkley kind of just tore that gap wide open, right? So not too long after that game, Coach Neuheisel, he was picking up his severance check. Yeah. You can see that when UCLA isn't going in a good direction football-wise, are they ever? And they lose to USC, that's gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you not just the game, but your head coach. So this year, it's kind of interesting. I kind of touched on it when we started talking about USC UCLA this week. That the line opened at 6.5. USC favored, not even a full touchdown, just 6.5 points. The over/under combined score 65.5 points. And that hasn't changed since that opening line came out on Sunday. We're now up to what, Wednesday? In case you're wondering, using those betting lines, USC so far this year, they're 3-8 against the point spread this season. And the Trojans have only covered the spread twice when they're favored by 6.5 points or more. And that's happened 8 times this season. So 2 out of 8. On the other side, UCLA has covered 3 times in 9 opportunities against the spread this year. So with that said, I think you can see why everybody's leaning towards USC, just not heavily. It's that over-under that's caught my eye. I expect USC to score points. And based on USC's defensive history, I would expect UCLA to score points. So the question is, how in the hell does a Chip Kelly team not score more than 1 touchdown in each of their last 2 losses? That's really the case. I mean, I guess if you want to be really cynical about it, they're ready to have an offensive explosion, and they got USC's defense. Here's how I look at this game. If USC doesn't turn the ball over and they play one of their cleaner games of the season, whatever that is, USC is going to win. And they're probably going to win by at least 2 touchdowns. I'm not sure what's going on with UCLA's offense, but they're struggling hard. Now, I'm not sure why UCLA would fire Chip Kelly after the game when there's still another week to play. That's their decision. Maybe they want to get a head start on their next head coach. Who knows? But I love the storyline. And mostly because misery loves company, right? USC season didn't go the way it wanted. Well, let's make sure that UCLA can kind of join the club. Understand what USC's feeling. So if I'm not going to be happy, I sure the hell don't want Joe Bruin and Josephine Bruin to be happy either. Both teams are riding a 2-game losing streak coming into this game. Now, the difference between that is USC's 2-game losing streak came against Washington and Oregon. UCLA was just swept by the state of Arizona. And now I'll give a little bit of latitude to their loss to the Wildcats. But again, UCLA shouldn't be losing to either of those Arizona schools this year. And Arizona State just beat UCLA at the Rose Bowl 17-7. How does that happen? I'm just whatever. So every time I see that, I'm thinking, okay, I know Chip Kelly knows how to coach offense. They were doing decent at the beginning of the year. Should USC fan be nervous about their own defense, despite Alex Grinch not being the coordinator anymore? I mean, let's be honest, all year opponents, their offense have had pretty good games against USC's defense. And this is a rivalry game. Anything happens, right? That whole cliche. I'm not ready to give my final score yet. I'll hold that for the next show. But again, if I was to make a bet on this game, I'm leaning over that 65.5. I really do think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Now, they say to the victor go the spoils, right? Well, since USC is going to be judge, jury, and executioner, they might as well also be the tax collector. The victory bell, that's going to stay over there in Heritage Hall, where it's sitting right now. Let's keep it. 2 more things that would make this offseason transition to the big conference a lot more fun to watch. Assuming Chip Kelly is relieved of duties, I would love for Cliff Kingsbury to be the next head coach at UCLA. Why not? And we can make a trade. Lincoln Riley can hire Chip Kelly to be his next offensive analyst. And if you think about it, this is actually kind of a smart move. Chip Kelly can collect his severance check and the buyout from UCLA. USC could pay him the minimum. And Chip Kelly can teach Lincoln Riley, who basically changed the rules in college football because defenses could not get guys in to rotate. He can teach Coach Riley how to use the play clock and how to substitute properly. I think that's Coach Riley's biggest deficiency right now, coaching and play calling on offense. Someone else that USC can go get. UCLA's defensive coordinator, Danton Lynn. Yeah. Let's be honest. Chip Kelly made a pretty good offseason hire when he brought him in to coach the defense. I wouldn't be mad at USC if they went out and did the same. Just wouldn't. Just saying. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. And so it also keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Whether you're dealing with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. That's right, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can get your streaming channel on YouTube live. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of the Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24-hour, 7 days a week streaming channel. That's pretty cool. The USC defensive coordinator job, I would anticipate, should have a lot of people fighting for the opportunity to coach at USC. A really good opportunity. USC is moving into the big conference, and there's not a whole lot of dynamic offenses. I mean, they're kind of few and far between. You've got USC, Washington's bringing theirs along. You got Oregon, they're bringing theirs along. And then, we'll bring some diversity. The Pac-12 offensive diversity, you'll add that to what? Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, those offensive styles. After that, that's about it, really, when you think about it. Unless you want to count Graham Harrell at Purdue. How did he get to Purdue? I thought you had to be smart to go to Purdue. That guy just keeps bouncing around. USC, West Virginia, Purdue. By the way, in case you don't know, he might have been my least favorite assistant coach of all time at USC. Just saying. That guy used more words and said less than anyone in the history of coach speak. Anyway, moving forward. We're going to talk more about the defensive coordinator hot board. We'll keep that updating as names become available. And there is a new name available. I'm going to get to him momentarily. Jim Leonard is still everyone's top choice. He's going to be at the top of the leaderboard until he actually says, no, USC, I'm not taking your best offer. You keep asking. You keep dialing the phone. Hey, Jim, how about this? What do you think about this, Jim? Again, you make him an offer you can't refuse, right? Right now, he's an analyst for the Illinois Fighting Illini. So, again, he's a Midwest guy. He's staying out there. And I think most people think he's just waiting for the NFL to come call him. We'll see. Phil Parker, he's the guy I like. All right. I don't think USC will get him because he's been at Iowa since I think Iowa became a state. But when you want something that's proven over an extended period of time, Phil Parker's Hawkeye defenses, those show up every year. So, yeah, that's why he would be like 1A or 1B for me if Jim Leonhard says no. Here's another top guy on my leaderboard, though. I really like Rutgers defensive coordinator Joe Harasymik. Harasymik. Someone type it out for me phonetically. Anyways, Rutgers ranks number 20 in scoring defense, number 10 in total defense, number 35 in rush defense, number 6 in pass defense, and number 2 in plays allowed over 20 yards or more this season. I can only imagine. Yeah, you too, right? And those numbers include playing Michigan and Ohio State already this season. So they've proven they can play with the big boys. Here's what I like about the guy. He's from New York, New Jersey. He's got that brash in your face attitude. From New York, you know what I mean, right? Anyways, the more I learn about this guy, I like him. Again, he's climbing up my leaderboard, especially if those other guys aren't available. You got to like, I mentioned him in the first segment, you got to like D'Anton Lynn, UCLA's defense coordinator. Again, check out these numbers. In 2022, the year before, UCLA ranked 90th in scoring defense, 87th in total defense, 118th in passing defense, 36th in rushing defense. In other words, they sound like USC 2023. Excuse me. So far through 9 games this year, in his first season at UCLA, the Bruins are 13th in scoring defense, 13th in total defense, 57th in passing defense, and 3rd in rushing defense. Oh, and I'll add, UCLA is also 3rd in sacks, 8th in tackles for loss, and they're tied for 5th in 20-yard plays allowed. Yeah. That'll get it done at USC. And he's got the right pedigree as well. I mean, his father, if you're not aware, Chargers head coach. He's only 34 years old. He's literally been carrying a football since he's been in Pampers. He's just been around the game his entire life. If we want to stay out west and take a look at another guy, mentioned him before, Trent Bray, the Oregon State defensive coordinator. This year, the Beavers, number 32 in scoring defense, number 19 in rushing defense, 66 in passing defense, number 35 in total defense. He's probably going to stay in Corvallis. He's a lifer. I mentioned Pete Kwiatkowski, the defensive coordinator at Texas, used to be up there at Washington. I waited a couple of days. I wanted to make sure Alex Mitch's USC corpse was cold before we started bringing up names, but Pete's name is in there. Those are really the top guys. And again, the list is always going to be growing, so I'll keep it updating, especially as programs continue to make their own staff adjustments. As we get to the bowl season, programs fire coaches, assistant coaches, lose jobs. So there's going to be a lot more names out there that we'll bring up. Here's another one, though, that just recently became available. This one's a real viable option. Zac Arnett. He took over the head coaching duties at Mississippi State when Lincoln Riley's mentor, Mike Leach, remember he passed away last year. The Bulldogs are only 4-6 this season, and they have a new athletic director, and he's going to be making his own hire. Essentially, Arnett won't be back next year to be the Bulldogs head coach. So here's what you need to know. He began his coaching career at San Diego State as a GA. That was back in 2011. He moved up to the linebackers coach ahead of the 2014 season, and he took over as defensive coordinator in 2018. And then he was there for 2 years before he headed over to Mississippi State as the DC defensive coordinator and linebackers coach prior to 2020. So 2 years at Mississippi State as the defensive coordinator. This is what Mike Leach said when he hired him. Zac is one of the brightest defensive coaches in all of college football. Having been mentored by Rocky Long during his successful time at San Diego State, Zac understands what it takes to build and run an elite defense. If you don't know, Rocky Long is one of the better defensive minds in college football and has been for a long time. He was a defensive coordinator at UCLA at one time. UCLA had a really good defense when he was there. And Rocky Long loves the 3-3-5 concept. So does Zac Arnett. If you like the personality of who Zac is, he's got a really good mean face. He looks like a defensive player. He looks like a linebacker. He played linebacker at New Mexico. In 2005, the Albuquerque Journal article had a story from, and they quoted his high school baseball coach. His name's Stan McKeever. I have no idea if he's related to any of the McKeever twins who played at USC. I have no idea. However, this is what he said about Arnett's play and leadership. Arnett has really been like the Mike Ditka of La Cueva High School. He was comparing him to the fiery former NFL head coach. He's such a heads-up player, and he's not afraid to say something to a teammate to get his head on straight, end quote. That's what you need. You need that type of ass kicker, especially on defense. I don't think USC has a coach on their roster this year like that, with that type of personality. Probably Sean Nua and Brian Odom come the closest. I've seen Sean Nua. He probably fits that criteria. I mentioned, so Zac came up, he played at New Mexico. He played, when he played at New Mexico, Rocky Long was his head coach. And again, I talked about the 3-3-5 defense. Zac is married to that, devoted to it. I mean, that's really all he knows. But Mike Leach said this about it as well. I've had a lot of respect for it for years. It's kind of one of those things where you don't just buy a book and have somebody read a few chapters and then they go run it. You need a guy that kind of grew up in it. There's other guys that grew up in that defense, but they don't have the nerve to call it. You need a guy, one, that knows it, and two, is not afraid to call it. Let me go over Zac's stats in his 2 years as defensive coordinator for San Diego State. Rocky Long was really the dude, but here, you give him the credit because it's on his resume. In his first year, 2018, as defensive coordinator at San Diego State, scoring defense, 32nd in the country. Total defense, 21st. Rushing defense, 7th. Passing defense, 66th. The following year, 2019, big time improvement. Scoring defense, 2nd in the nation. Total defense, 5th in the nation. Rushing defense, 2nd in the nation. Passing defense, 44th. Again, I can only imagine where USC is today with those rankings. At Mississippi State in 2019, this is the year before he got there. The Bulldogs' scoring defense was 73rd, total defense 73rd, rushing defense 60th, passing defense 97th. In 2020, his first year, the numbers got better. 57th scoring defense, total defense 52nd, rushing defense 23rd, passing defense 105th, slight drop. 2021, you saw improvement. 62nd scoring defense, 31 total defense, 12th rushing defense, 71st passing defense. And then in 2022, 40th scoring, 35th total, 41st rushing, 42nd passing. Again, across the board, better. So are you good with the 3-3-5 scheme with some tinkering in the big conference, in the Big Ten conference? Because that's what you're going to get. I mean, the numbers ain't bad. And the offenses in the SEC, they've kind of evolved from that horse and buggy era 10 years ago. You see a lot of up-tempo, spread them out offenses in the SEC now. Even Nick Saban was running that stuff. So, if you can make it work in the SEC with big, fast, strong players, you could probably make it work in the Big Ten Conference with big, fast, strong players too. Again, I'm going to keep you updated on any names that come up. There'll be a lot between now and the bowl season. But I think that whole Lincoln Riley, Mike Leach connection has some real possibilities. We know that Lincoln Riley can be loyal to a fault. And let's be honest, USA could do a lot worse than Zac Arnett. But again, we'll see what happens. A lot of names are going to be out there. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins, period. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. They have a wide range of betting options, including the point spreads, player prop bets, over-unders, and they got more than just that. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. After practice on Tuesday, Coach Riley was asked about Ceyair Wright, and this is what he had to say. He's not with us right now, and he didn't have anything to add to that. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say that and again, we don't know the particulars, but I think that transfer exodus line into the portal from USC, I think it's going to be a long line. Earlier in the year, I didn't think USC would have maybe 10 players. I think it's going to be much more than that. And I don't know, what's your read on that? How do you feel about that? I think everybody feels that Korey, Foreman, Raleek, Brown, they're bouncing. They're gone. And then there's been rumors that Michael Jackson III, he might be bouncing, an MIA. As far as Ceyair Wright, the most recent, he hasn't played lately. And before that, his playing time was on the severely declining. So let me ask this question: yay or nay? Last year and this year, USC's best cornerbacks were Mekhi Blackman and Christian Roland Wallace, respectively. The answer is yes. And both were essentially one-year transfers. They didn't come up through USC. They brought their bad habits with them, so to speak. Josh Henson wasn't coaching the cornerbacks. Ceyair was a local 4-star, highly rated, highly recruited, local kid, Loyola High School. He's also an actor. Space Jam with LeBron. You might remember last year, Dante Williams. He commented after practice that, and I'm paraphrasing, that Ceyair had to kind of make the decision if he was going to be full time. Something to that nature. You might remember. He was essentially challenging Ceyair Wright to show more, be more dedicated, spend more time with the program. Well, last year he was a starter, and he was also a starter this year. But both years, his playing time just declined as the year went along. He's not even playing now. I mean, they moved Mekhi Lemon over from wide receiver to play cornerback. So, wouldn't be surprised if he's not the last, in fact, to get in that transfer portal line, if that's the case. And I don't even think he'll be the last one from the defensive back room, safety, cornerback. I think there's going to be at least one or two more joining him. Other guys, look, I don't like to speculate on other names, but one guy in particular I will bring up because his name, he was one of the hot guys during spring and after spring. Sam Green, defensive end, rush end. He's already played in 4 games this year. So you're not going to burn his red shirt now in this last game of the year or the bowl game. And if you do, you're basically saying you're wearing that uniform for the last time because you're asking him to burn a red shirt, wasting a season. But guys don't like to do that, especially if they're traveling 3,000 miles away from home. If they're going to sit, they want to keep that year. That's all I'm saying. So I just wanted to bring up that one name. Now, I will bring up the name Eric Gentry and his situation. What's going on there? How do you go from being a team leader, best guy on the field, at least on the defensive side of the ball, to not even traveling to Oregon? There's some stuff going on social media, and again, that's why you don't try and figure things out through Twitter, X, whatever, Instagram. Players make these cryptic little comments, or they'll like something or retweet something. You don't necessarily know why. But I think there is something going on behind the scenes. There just seems to be an appearance of discontent in the locker room right now. Maybe. I don't know. I could be off. I tend to have a pretty good observant eye. All these guys, these are highly recruited players. It's not like these players we're talking about are roster filler guys. So I don't know what's going on. Riley, possibly this. He's made some comments recently that there are guys on the roster right now who probably shouldn't be. So I don't know. All I know is the season didn't go as positively as everyone had hoped, anticipated. So I think there's feelings, emotions that are starting to, come to the surface right now. End of the year, people aren't sure, what their standing is, what's going on. And look, I get that Coach Riley likes to protect his team, but it always seems like there's something shrouded in mystery. To say that Ceyair Wright's not with us right now. Personal matter, school matter, injury, undisclosed. When you leave it that ambiguous, you see what happens. So we'll see if we can find out what's going on. I'll be back for another episode of Locked On USC tomorrow, because that's what we do 5 times a week, as well as you get your post-game reaction. And we're going to be talking more about UCLA. So until then, everybody, you know what to do.